All right, let's talk about something you probably handle every single day, but maybe don't think too much about: the money in your wallet. We're going to unravel a real mystery here.
I mean, seriously, look at it. It's just a piece of paper, right? Or, a number on your banking app. It has no real value on its own. You can't eat it, you can't build a shelter with it. So why is it worth anything? How can you trade this flimsy piece of paper for a cup of coffee, or a car, or, even a house? That's the big question we're diving into.
And well, here's the answer in a nutshell. It's something called fiat currency. And its value, it comes from one place, and one place only. A government saying, this is money. That's it. It's not backed by gold, it's not backed by silver, not by anything you can touch. It's backed by a promise, or maybe more accurately, an order.
But, this is a relatively new thing. It wasn't always like this. For most of history, money was tied to something real, something you could actually hold and feel its weight. So the big question is, how do we get here? How do we move from a system based on actual stuff to one that's, well, basically just an idea?
Okay, so this really breaks it down. On one side, you've got what we used to have, representative money. The easiest way to think about this is like a claim check. Your dollar bill was basically a ticket that said, you can trade me in for a tiny bit of gold that's sitting in a government vault. Simple, right? But now look at the other side. That's our world today, fiat money. That same dollar bill, it's not a claim on anything anymore. It just represents itself. The sign no longer points to the gold, it just points back to the sign. It's a huge shift.
And believe it or not, this massive change pretty much happened overnight. We can pinpoint the exact moment, August 15th, 1971. It was called the Nixon Shock. In one move, the U.S. government completely cut the final tie between the dollar and gold. And just like that, both, the nature of money for the entire world changed. And we entered the global fiat era we're still in today.
So, that brings us back to the core puzzle. If it's not gold, what's actually giving this piece of paper its value? How can a government just say something is money and have everybody actually go along with it? How does that even work?
Well, a big clue is right there in the name itself. Fiat. It's a Latin word, and it literally means, let it be done. It's not a suggestion, it's a command, an order. See, this isn't money that grew organically out of people trading things. This is money that was created from the top down, by decree. And that command gets its power through a pretty straightforward three-step process. First, the government just declares, okay, everyone, this is our official money now. Second, they give a central bank, like the Federal Reserve, the monopoly, the only right to issue that money. And third, and this part is absolutely crucial, they create what are called legal tender laws. This basically means that by law, everyone in the country has to accept this money as payment for debts. You don't really have a choice.
This really gets to the core of it all. Value is no longer a physical thing, like how much a piece of gold weighs. Instead, value becomes a legal concept, a juridical phenomenon. Think about it like this. The value of a gold coin is in the gold. But the value of a dollar bill? Its value is in the legal system that forces us to accept it. It's worth something because the law says it's worth something. Wild, right?
But here's the thing. Laws and commands, they can only go so far. There's another ingredient, something much more powerful and, frankly, much more fragile, that really makes this whole thing work.
And it really all boils down to just one single word: trust. That's it. Trust is like the invisible foundation holding up our entire modern economy. It's this shared belief system that gives every dollar, every euro, every yen its power. If you take that away, well, the money in your pocket is just colorful paper.
So what do we even mean by trust here? It's not just some fuzzy feeling. It's actually a few specific things all working together. It's our faith that the government isn't going to collapse tomorrow. And, maybe even more importantly, it's the collective belief that if you accept this money for your work today, someone else will accept it from you for groceries tomorrow. It's this massive, unspoken social contract we all participate in. I love this quote. It calls value a shared hallucination, systematized. And that's kind of what it is, isn't it? Fiat money works because we've all, as a society, agreed to believe in the same story. It's a fiction, for sure, but it's an incredibly powerful one that becomes real simply because we all act as if it is.
Now, this system, this belief system, it gives governments an incredible amount of power. And like any kind of power, it's a double-edged sword. It has some massive upsides, but also some really scary downsides.
So let's look at both sides of that coin. Okay, so what's the big upside? The main argument for a fiat system is one word: flexibility. It gives a government and its central bank a whole toolkit to manage the economy. They can adjust interest rates up or down to speed up or slow down growth, and in a major crisis, they can do things like quantitative easing to pump money into the system and keep things from collapsing. It's a very dynamic set of tools that you just don't have when you're tied to gold.
But here's the danger. Here's the risk. When your money isn't anchored to anything physical, there's nothing stopping a government from just creating more of it, out of thin air. And if that power is abused, if they print way, way too much, you unleash the ultimate economic monster, hyperinflation.
And this is what's really at risk. It's not about the number 10 printed on a bill. It's about your purchasing power. What can that $10 bill actually buy you in the real world? Inflation is like this silent thief, slowly, and sometimes not so slowly, stealing the value of your money.
So let's make this visual. Imagine this bar here represents what, say, 20 bucks could buy you a year ago. A full basket of groceries, the whole deal. Your purchasing power is 100%. Now, look what happens after a year of really high inflation. You still have that same $20 bill. The number on it hasn't changed. But that basket of groceries, now you can only buy a quarter of it. That is what it means to lose purchasing power. In extreme cases, this is hyperinflation in action. It's what happens when that shared trust completely evaporates.
So when you step back and look at it, it's pretty clear that fiat currency is so much more than just an economic tool. It's this deep, powerful, social and psychological invention that honestly underpins our entire modern world.
Let's just wrap up the key takeaways here. On a fundamental level, fiat money turned money from a thing into an idea. Politically, it concentrated enormous economic power in the hands of the government. Psychologically, as we've seen, the whole system runs on our collective trust and imagination. And that leads to the final point. It's temporary. It's fragile. The entire system only lasts as long as we all continue to believe in it.
And that brings us right back to where we started. Why is this piece of paper in your wallet worth anything? The answer is because it's a key part of what might be civilization's most successful story ever told. A fiction about value, power, and trust that we have all collectively agreed to believe is real.
And that has to leave you with one final pretty big question. We've been living inside this particular story of money for a long time now. But stories change. They evolve. New chapters get written. So you have to wonder, what happens when that story starts to change? What happens when our collective belief begins to shift?